One of the biggest problems I see with working with high achievers and high performers is that we need to acknowledge daily the smallest things, not make them big, because the bigger it is, the more complicated it is. It's like you're never ever going to feel fulfilled.
Emile Steenveld,
a former global model for Versace, Hugo Boss, and Calvin Klein.
Emile has over 14 years of coaching experience, impacting more than 800 lives and dedicating over 1,000 hours to transformative sessions.
I didn't think that I was enough. I always wanted to be the best. And the reason why I wanted those things is because I was seeking validation from my father. And I always look at that whenever I'm looking at or coaching like high performers or high achievers. I'm like, where did it stem from? It's the deep desire to be seen, heard, and understood, to be felt, to be acknowledged. And the biggest problem we don't do for ourselves is we're waiting for someone else to do it for us. Some of the biggest blind spots I see is the lack of boundaries, because you can be so good at what you do, and because you're so good at what you do, they get burnt out. Literally, the hardest thing is pulling yourself away from it.
Yeah.
There's been so much noise out there with morning routines, and it's gotten pushed out of proportion. When you get in the ice bath, it is one of those habits that once you get in, it sharpens your focus like that. It's like you can't be anywhere else but present.
What are some things that self-sabotaging patterns, self-sabotaging actions, results that might be playing out in people's lives?
You've heard of the upper limit,
Yes.
right? Remember Will Smith punched Chris Rock in the face?
Yeah.
The famous slap, he hit an upper limit. And what happened? Everything went crashing down. So do you see that he went the upper limit? He was about to go to the next part. The other side of that upper limit was...
Emile, welcome back to the podcast. So good to recircle this. I think you're actually one of my first 50 guests.
Mhm.
That's how far longer we were on this podcast. So I want to dive into so many new things, but I want to kind of tap into, your whole past was you're one of the biggest models. You were modeling for some of the biggest companies, brands in the world, like Versace, Armani, some of the biggest brands. And now you've gone a completely different direction. You're a transformational coach working with high performers, elite entrepreneurs. And one of the things you work with a lot of them on is tapping into more fulfillment. And I'm wondering where did that desire for a change come from? Did you go down the path of being super unfulfilled, doing a career that was what most would probably look at as a dream career?
Yeah, exactly that. I literally, I was modeling for a good 12 years around the world. I had agencies in New York, Los Angeles, Hong Kong, Barcelona, Germany, Italy. I was living the dream.
And
How
old were you when you were doing all this?
When I first started modeling, I was 21 when I first went overseas. So I
Yeah.
started about 20, and then I went overseas, went to Hong Kong for my first trip away. And the whole thing was like this illusion. You're like, what is this? How does this work? You don't understand anything. And I look at it like it's like the Matrix. So you're you're trying to figure out how this works. You're going to castings. You're constantly getting put in uncomfortable situations because you're getting faced with rejection all the time. So modeling taught me so much about myself. It taught me about my desires. It taught me about my fears, because it's one of those things that you can't hide. It's like you're in front of a camera. It's like, how do you show up confident in front of a camera? So all these things that I was actually super shy, and I wouldn't say shy. I was actually just shit scared of being rejected. So what did I do? I put myself in a career that I had to go towards every single fear that I was avoiding. Now, what most people don't know is that I didn't think that I was enough, right? I was always a perfectionist. I always wanted to get better. I always wanted to be the best. And the reason why I wanted those things is because I was seeking validation from my father. I was seeking to be approved of. I wanted him to see me. And because he didn't express or say, well done, or I'm proud of you, or give me that affirmation back, I just thought, it's got to be bigger. It's got to be better. It's got to be huge. And then he'll notice me. And I think this is where most high achievers and high performers stem from. They get their thing from their lack. Michael Jordan, example, was cut from his high school varsity team in basketball. Even growing up as a kid, he wasn't the best basketball player. He would always get beaten by his older brother. And he always wanted to be seen by his father. His father would always be like, get in the kitchen or go into the house with your mom. And his older brother would always go with his father. say there was a deep desire there to be seen, to be the best, you know? And I always look at that whenever I'm looking at or coaching like high performers or high achievers. I'm like, where did it stem from? And it's the deep desire to be seen, heard, and understood, to be felt, to be acknowledged, to be seen. And the biggest problem we don't do for ourselves is we do that for ourselves. We're waiting for someone else to do it for us. So going back to like the modeling career, I jumped into a career because I didn't feel any of that. And what's modeling? It's like you're paraded around, it looks good, you know, the glamour, you know, you got, there's women everywhere, the most beautiful women in the world. You get into the most exclusive parties. I was in New York and I'm going into One Oak and like we get free dinners and we're getting picked up in SUVs, and the next table, Jay-Z's partying on the next table with us, and it's just a normal occurrence and you just get treated like this, but it's not real. And the thing that's not real about it is that this whole illusion of what it looks like versus what you're doing every day. Like I had to train. I trained so consistently, made sure I was in the best shape of my life. Everything was revolving around how I looked and am I going to book that next job? But the thing that's fucked up about that is that when you're constantly looking on the outside, sometimes you can forget the inside. And although I started to go from Australia to Hong Kong to LA, then getting an agency in New York and other countries in Europe, it looks like I'm living the dream. Bro, I'm on billboards. I'm getting paid really good money. I'm meeting women, like I'm young and I'm traveling around the world and it looks great. But I'm also getting to the stage of probably about my 8th year of modeling where I'm like, I'm not fulfilled. It's not lighting me up like I thought it would, right? And you've heard this, so many entrepreneurs do this, like we get to that $1 million mark or you get to this thing and you're like, I did it.
I thought it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did that. I remember a huge goal for me was I wanted to be interviewed. And so my last company, when I was building it, I'm like, I want to be the #1 income earner under the age of 25 in the company. And I want to be interviewed on stage by the billionaire founder. And the day they kind of both happened, like I hit #1 that week and I was being interviewed that same week. And I remember after the interview, it was literally that whole story of like, this fucking sucks. Like it was in a weird way of like, and I'm interested to sort of dive into high achiever syndrome. I've been like focusing quite a bit on this lately and just calling it high achiever syndrome because I think it really is. But I remember like getting off that stage, just being like, it's deflated and 6,000 people in the room. My face was on the billboards everywhere. And after just going like, oh, this is not what I thought it was. But then because I sort of knew that thought might have been coming, I was just so conflicted. But how I've sort of gotten over that since then is continually moving the goalposts. Because I realized I only ever hit a point where I'm like, oh, is that it? When I didn't move the goalposts again. And it's like I put all the fixation on when I achieve that, I'm going to hopefully feel this. So I'm going to not feel the enjoyment now. I'm going to suffer now. And when I get it, hopefully I'll feel this thing. So how I've sort of done it now is making sure I'm really enjoying the process. Like there's not really a day goes by, except when I'm filming content. Like yesterday we did a content day and I said to my team, I'm like, I genuinely have no fucking joy doing this. Like I really, but it's like the one day a month I'm just like, let's just fucking do it. I'm already thinking at the end of my day today, I'm going to go to bed and think today was a boring day, but I got to do it. Right. So how I get through like I focus on things I actually do enjoy. So when the outcome still comes, I'm like, this is amazing. It's just another day that I still get to enjoy, but it's not it because what's the next thing? And I keep moving the goalposts. Otherwise I will sink.
I think that's a really vital thing that you said. And I think for anyone that's listening or watching, the fact that you're moving the goalposts, most people don't.
Yeah.
Right? Most people are like, when I get this, then I'm going to feel this. And then I'm going to have this feeling and it's going to satisfy all of my needs. And it doesn't. And this is where depression kicks in. This is where that feeling of like emptiness kicks in. And you're like, what's next? I've worked my whole life for this thing. I got to it and it didn't give me the thing that I thought it would give me. And this is why vision and the why needs to be so big, right? And if we don't have that vision and a big why, then what's going to happen is we're constantly going to keep hitting your head on the board, right? There's going to be no drive or inspiration. I say inner inspiration. It's just going to be constantly like a motivation, which motivation is relied on outside. Inspiration is coming from inside. So we always need to constantly reevaluate, reconnect, and go, what's the inspiration for this? What's my values? And we have to always go back to the vision and then retweak it because you're not the same person you were when you were 25 compared to now. And if we keep relying on a vision that we created 5 years ago with the mindset that we had 5 years ago, you're going to grow out of it. If you're not actually consistent, you will grow out. If you are consistent, you'll grow out of it in like 6 months.
Do you find it to be like a delicate dance between continually moving the goalposts, but then not being able to celebrate at the same time?
Okay, so I say the thing is with high achievers and high performers, what we don't do
Is celebrate.
is acknowledge ourselves, right? And why don't we acknowledge ourselves? Because it's
still not done yet.
Yes. Or it's the whole thing of it's not big enough.
Yeah.
I've got to wait until it's bigger. And this is the problem. One of the biggest problems I see with working with high achievers and high performers is that we need to acknowledge daily the smallest things, right? Not make them big, because the bigger it is, the more complicated it is. It's like you're never ever going to feel fulfilled, right? When we acknowledge the small things and we go, well done for even just opening the door for that person. I'm talking super simple.
So it's just an actual being present, acknowledging the thing.
Exactly. Well done for yesterday. You sat through the content even though you didn't want to, right? That's acknowledging, right? You don't need a big acknowledgement to be like, oh, you made that big fucking $100,000 deal. You need the little acknowledgement, because that's what we need to be seen. Right? This is what we never got when we were children, right? Right. So we need to acknowledge the little things, because those little things make the big things. And that's what makes us whole and complete. And when we can do that on a consistent basis, then the gap of feeling like I'm never going to be enough, because that's where it's stemming from. I need to go bigger, because if I go bigger, then I'll feel enough. But if we start to acknowledge the smaller things, those little things like build our self-esteem from the ground up. And once we build it from the ground up, we're no longer creating from a place of lack. We're creating from a place of abundance, fun, value. I don't need to create this because I have to, because I don't want to feel this feeling anymore, because that's where most high achievers create from. It comes from a place of, I never want to feel like that again.
Like an away from.
Yep. I'm never going to do that. You watch. I'll fucking prove you wrong.
Yeah.
Right? And you hear that drive?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll fucking show you. Like, I've said it to myself so many times.
Yeah. Someone asked me one time, I remember they're asking us about, like, is it okay to sort of be motivated to try to prove something? And I'm like, I think it's actually fantastic in the short term, because nothing's more motivating than to avoid some sort of pain. So we can attach to like, well, I'm going to create this because I never want to be broke. I never want to experience it again. And you see these people get tremendous results, but it's not sustainable. So at what point do you think we can start to, because my advice to them was, I was like, it's fantastic to get off the sign ground, like get the plane off the ground. It's very useful, but you'll destroy your engines. Like your engines get explode one day and you'll be like, why does my life suck? Unless we can switch and pivot to go, I love that I get to do this for these reasons, and this is the new creation. And like I do a lot from that space now of like, what's the next thing I get to create, and it's exciting. Versus like I think it was an income threshold as well. Once I sort of maybe went past like maybe 500-600K in a year, I was kind of like, it's not like the money's still good, but
it's also not hitting the thing that you feel like you used to.
No, now it's more from I am excited to go, what else can we do? Like, what's the next? I was like, fuck, if I've done that, what's next? What else? And it's the excitement of going, what's the new creation? What's the new challenge? What's the new thing I can do? It's a little scary to go, let's see if I can fucking pull this off. So it's exciting. But what do you sort of think on that? And like for the people that might be watching this that know they're doing something to try and make their dad proud, make their parents proud, prove themselves, or how can they start to, I guess, pivot from such an away from motivator?
it all starts with, first you have to have awareness of like where you're creating from, because most of us, we get up and we just automatically go into the thing of, this is just what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Not many people will ask themselves, what am I creating for? For what? Is it status? Do I want money? Do I want to feel a certain thing? Have I been conditioned to do this? Right? And I always go to my clients. I'm like, where are you creating from, and what is the end goal? Like, what do you think this is going to get you? Right? And you're either creating from lack, fear, judgment, scarcity of, I don't want this to happen. I don't want to feel like this. I've never felt enough, so I'm going to just make it even more perfect. And if I make it more perfect, perfect means that people will accept me and love me, right? That's one of the biggest drivers. And the other side of it is like, or am I going to create from a place of value? What are my internal values? Have I sat down and worked out what my values are, what my vision is? And is it authentic to me, specifically me, not if I do this, then I'll be accepted by my parents or my partner or the people out there, right? Is it internal? So we always have to ask, where are we creating from? And the next step is, after you've got the awareness around that, it's, how am I going to show up, or what's the identity I need to create in order to have what I desire tomorrow? Now, this is the thing about identity work. Most people have an identity of like, I'm someone, like for me, one of my identities, I don't identify as someone that doesn't drink. So naturally, when we go out and people say, do you want to drink? I said, no, I don't drink. That's part of my identity, right? Mm-hmm. Now, when you are trying to change something about yourself, you have to create a new identity, which is a deeper form of a belief. That's where you're coming from. I'm coming from this place, and then I create, right? Versus, when I create the $1 million, then I will show up like this. It's like, no, I come from $1 million. I'm someone that creates wealth. I'm someone that shows up in this space. I walk, I talk like a millionaire. Like, these are my traits.
So the byproduct of being a certain person is the result.
Exactly. So it's like, I'm coming from that space. So first we have to have the awareness. Mm-hmm. Then we have to ask ourselves, what is the identity I need to create in order to have what I desire tomorrow?
Identity being thoughts, patterns, habits.
Yeah. So if you identify as a painter, then it's like, I'm someone that paints daily, or I do it weekly. It's like, this is just who I am. This is just what I do. I'm someone identified as someone that moves daily. So I move my body and train consistently now, right? So someone that does not identify as someone that moves daily will be like, I don't really like to train, and I just don't like exercise. So that's their identity. And then they go and they have a diet, and they get on a diet, and then they wonder why they keep yo-yoing. So they get on the diet, they have the food, and then they like start to lose weight, and I'm seeing some progress, but I still haven't changed that internal identity. And then what happens is they go through life and then they yo-yo. So they have 4 or 5 days or really good eating, and then they fuck up once, and then what do? I'll just start on Monday again. The identity's fucked. So we need to work on that. What's your internal identity, but also the consistency of building those habits over long term, because over time it compounds. Mm-hmm. Right? So if we're going to really change the behavior, we have to really be like, okay, well, how are all the ways I can set myself up to win? Accountability is key also, because we can get so good at negotiating.
I recently just got an ice bath on my deck at home.
Yeah.
And whenever it's easier to do an ice bath here in Bali, because you want to get into it. But when it's, the morning still in the Gold Coast, like 19 degrees, 20 degrees, that's the last fucking thing I want to do in the morning. And it's funny that it's like how good I can get at negotiating. And I can say little things to myself like, well, just have today off because you've just done the last entire week. Like, that's really good. Just treat yourself. And it's this balance, the paradox of self-love, actually, isn't it? To go, well, I love myself so much to be like, so I'm going to do what I feel like doing in the moment. And I don't want to do that. But then actually I could argue, well, if you really loved yourself, you would do what was hard because you really cared about the results you want. And it's this continual fight of that. So I'm all too familiar with, like sometimes I can walk and pace in the house for 20 minutes in the morning, thinking of all the other things. Let's go do this first. Just do this first. And I'm like, just fucking 3 minutes, go get that fucking bath. All right.
Yeah. And then you do it, and then you sit and you're like, I did it. I did the thing.
Yeah. So it's an absolute non-negotiable for me because that will fucking haunt me like a demon for the rest of the day.
Mm.
To be like, if I try to do something else, it's like, yeah, you didn't do that. What? And then so you just start the cycle. Well, you already didn't do that. Why don't you just not do that today? Why not do that today? And so I'm like a slave to that. Just those first 3 minutes. If I can just do that, then the rest of the day will be somewhat easy because I'm not fighting myself as much.
It's such a funny thing with the ice bath, because when you get in the ice bath, it is one of those habits that once you get in, it sharpens your focus like that.
Mm.
And when you sharpen your focus and you have laser focus, it's like you can't be anywhere else but present. What you're actually seeking is that presence and that connection. So when you get in, like before you hopped in, where's your thoughts? Scattered. I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this. What you're doing is you're getting in the ice bath, and straight away it's getting boom, laser. Then you start to focus. It starts to slow your thoughts down because you're like, you're just focusing on breathing, getting through, I'm going through the 3 minutes. I'm just here, right? Then you start to, it almost starts to like reward you in a way where you actually are like, I did the thing I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
And when you do the thing you don't want to do on a consistent basis, it's like that builds resilience, that builds trust. And when you're starting to trust yourself, because I know I say I'm going to do it, and when it comes out of my mouth, it's already done, that builds confidence. And then that is the after effect of the ice bath. You get out, and then all of a sudden your body starts warming up. You release endorphins, like, you start to feel good, and you're like, what's next?
Yeah. I want to talk about what are the blind spots of high achievers, high performers?
Some of the biggest blind spots I see is the lack of boundaries.
Interesting. How does this show up?
Because you can be so good at what you do,
Uh-huh.
and because you're so good at what you do, and you get that adrenaline and that, those endorphins kicking in because of, you're constantly being rewarded, you can forget other parts. So for example, like a lot of high achievers will get burnt out. They get burnt out. They end up literally fucking up their sleep.
Because they're just trying to do so much.
They're just so in that, like, the thing is, when you're so good at what you do, the hardest thing is pulling yourself away from it.
Yeah.
Right? And when you're getting so many results and you're seeing things, like you have an idea, you create it and you get it executed, or you have a good team, it's really hard to stop when you're seeing so much momentum. And when you're seeing that kind of momentum, it's like it can become addictive. And the problem sometimes is, like I said, when I say boundaries, it's like sometimes if I'm too involved with this, there's no connection with myself. I start to sacrifice other parts of me. Boundary starts at home, starts with myself, right? Sometimes people get it's almost like so much of the Kool-Aid that they just forget about everything else. And I just do this because it makes me feel good. Then relationships suffer, connection to family. When last you've spoken to your parents? Or I haven't, I don't have time. So it's like the blind side of that is like, how can I make sure I'm making the time to do what's important as well, to do what matters, right? Me making sure that I'm taking my kid out. Like, I don't have a child, but you know what I'm saying? I'm giving you an example, right? Making sure I'm spending quality time with them and I'm being present, versus like I'm with you, but I'm not really with you because I'm checking my phone every 5 seconds and I'm responding to the team and this and that. Like actually scheduling time to be present with family.
This is definitely me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I find it very hard to switch off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like because I've also had this conversation with my partner.
Yeah.
Because before I started dating her, I didn't have a day off for about 7 years. And one of my mentors said to me once, he's like, because I was hitting a plateau in business and I'm like, everything I'm fucking doing is not working. He's like, well, go take 2 days off a week. I'm like, what? I don't think you understood me. I need to work harder. He's like, well, you've been working your fucking ass off. That's not working. So why don't you do the opposite? I'm like, very counterintuitive, but all right. Took time off, started making more money. I'm like, interesting. Okay. And then I started to enjoy it. So before I met Simona, my life was that. I would work every day and I would work until 10 or 11 o'clock at night. I like night times more. I don't usually like to do anything before about 10 or midday. But when I started dating her, I got into this flow of actually enjoying 1 or 2 days off a week. So she's only sort of known me having this more balance. And lately I'm switching back more into a season of like I want to do a lot more. And so I only have 1 day off a week now. But even it's a Sunday with her. And the other day I said to her, I'm like, you know what? Sometimes, like, what I genuinely want to do, I just want to fucking work.
Mm.
Like, because I get so much joy out of it. I get joy out of
Exactly.
doing things.
Yeah.
So it's not coming from a place of like, I've got to. I'm like, I just really want to. Like, I don't,
That's
know.
but that's some of the blind spots,
Right.
right? Because it's like we can do that, and you're getting so much joy from it. That's why, and it's like I get to create it all the time.
Mm,
Now, when you are someone that is creating all the time, and you have it, like I said, you have a team, you can get things done really fast, right? So then you love momentum,
yeah.
right? And then when you're seeing momentum, it's like, oh, give me more,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this is the thing. It's like sometimes we need to slow down to speed up, right? It's like when I'm talking to a lot of the high achievers, the high performers, I'm like, we need to get you meditating. We need to get you sitting and just allowing some of your thoughts to pass through you. I don't have time to meditate. I'm like, cool. Well, let's meditate a little bit longer then,
Yeah.
because of
What's that saying? So
yeah,
you don't have time to meditate 10 minutes a day. You need
You
to
should-
meditate an hour a day.
yeah, exactly. And the reason for that is like, it's like what your mind, you think you can do when you actually are calmer and more centered, you will get 10 times things, like 10 times more done. And this is the thing. It's like people think if you, for example, Morgan, if you just like, I'm just going to keep running, I'm going to go for a
Mhm.
run, I'm going to keep going, and I'll get further because I won't rest.
Mm-hmm.
How long,
Yeah.
how long will you run for?
Yeah.
It won't. You'll eventually conk out and you'll end up like passing out, burning out. If you give yourself some rest, drink some water, get good food into you, nutrients, proper sleep. Like this is one of the biggest things that's overlooked also with high achievers and high performers is sleep,
Mm.
right? They thrive on, I'm just smashing it. I'm only getting 4 hours, 5 hours of sleep. I'm like, your adrenaline glands are shot, right? Your nervous system is shot. Like I know people that are constantly like sitting, I've had to get them off different medications to get them back into their body and calm their nervous system down. It's like eventually you're going to, it's almost erupt, right?
Mm.
And unease in the system on a consistent basis turns into dis-ease, which is turning into disease, right?
What are some things we can do to sort of, because I think this would relate a lot, always being busy, doing things. And for my own sake, like what I've found is how long can I go before I really sort of need and want that break? And I used to do it every single week, and I didn't really like it. But I'll operate in seasons. So I might be so right now I'm definitely in a season of chill now. Well, we have an event this week, but I go back to the Gold Coast for a few weeks. But then I'm going to Europe, and I'm in a season of chill. But I just came off a season of obscenity for about 3 months. And what I've noticed is I can really push seasons for about 2 to 3 months.
Yeah.
And so for the people listening this, watching this, that can resonate with, I struggle to sort of switch off, or what are some things, because I get that actually, like slowing down and speed up. We've been focusing a lot on my health lately, and sleep is a big thing. Like I wake up when I'm finished sleeping. I don't use an alarm. We're doing everything. We used to do like all my DNA tests and everything the other day. 120-page document came back.
Oh, right.
Crazy. Have you ever had that done?
No,
Your
what is-
DNAs?
yeah.
Crazy. I'll link you up with my guy, but
Yeah.
so he sent me stuff yesterday. He's like, look at this. He's like, your dopamine receptors are low. He's like, this is probably why you jump out of airplanes, because I skydive for fun. Right. So like my days off are skydiving. Right. It's like I just have to keep this high peak. So what are some things that we can do, I guess, to be more in our bodies and be more calmer without it sort of feeling like it's gonna conflict with this high performance attitude?
I mean, I think if it's all about sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, instead of like saying this is a race, like look at it like this is a marathon. How do I want to run this? Right. And in order to run a proper marathon, it's like you have to prepare. You have to make sure that your body's like prepared for this journey. And it's like, ask yourself, what's the game that I'm going to play for myself so that I can make sure that I get the most out of this whole journey, right? Because ultimately, when you think about it, as you go along the entrepreneurial journey, like, you know, you're 32 now, right?
31.
31, sorry.
Yeah, give me that year.
You're 31 right now. And you think about it, it's like from this age to this age, you're going to have more energy, the next 5 years, who knows? Your metabolism's going to start to slow down, bro.
I'll have more.
You say that, we'll see.
I just choose it.
You're
I'm not opting into your beliefs of your age.
Your my age. Your metabolism starts to slow down. You start to see your recovery rate changes. Your sleep patterns will even change. And then if you have kids, or that's also going to change. It's like, how's your focus in that? So I always like to make sure that my clients have really good morning and night routines. I make sure that they're holistic.
Give us some examples. What's a good? Because I trash talk morning routines quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because I think they've just become stupid. Like I was doing morning routines back when we first met.
Yeah.
And it consists of. It changed the game for me actually. I remember I used to wake up on my phone immediately. What's up, Dream Nation? Have you ever wondered how far ahead your life would have already been if you had got access to this type of content at a younger age? Look, this is why I need your help. I'm trying to build the #1 personal development platform out there to teach you guys the tips, tricks, and attitude of what it takes to live your dream life, and to bring the type of education that we all wish we had in school. This show only grows by word of mouth and new subscribers, so it would mean the world to me if you could smash that subscribe button right now, leave us a 5-star written review, or drop a comment below and share this episode with a friend. I would be forever grateful. All right, now let's get back into this episode. Replying to messages. That was my morning routine.
Yeah.
And then once I just simply started putting my phone on airplane mode, 10 minutes, 15 minutes of mindfulness in the morning, wrote gratitudes and read a vision. It's like my goals. I just wrote goals. 20 minutes in the morning, game changer for me. And then just did some sort of movement, went for a run, I went to the gym, and then came back, got on my phone. Changed the fucking game for me. But now it's like you get on social media. If you're not doing cold therapy, red light therapy, talk therapy, laughing therapy, meditating for 6 hours, fasting all day, doing 600 push-ups, like you're doing it wrong. You know what I mean? Like if you're not waking up at 2:37 in the morning.
It's I know. I wake up at 2:30 in the morning.
I know, it's just ridiculous shit. Someone said to me the other day, my mate, he was talking to his camera guy, and his camera guy goes, just message Morgan. It was like 6:30 in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. He goes, just message Morgan and ask him that question now. And Dan's like, he's not going to be awake. He goes, what do you mean he's not going to be awake? Doesn't he wake up at 5 o'clock? And he's like, he's probably one of the only successful entrepreneurs I know that just wakes up whenever the fuck he feels like, actually. Like, I wake up at 7:30 this morning.
Yeah. I'm the same, actually.
Like, when I'm done, I get up.
I think, bro, there's been so much noise out there with morning routines, and it's gotten pushed out of proportion. And I think even when I work with any of my clients, the first thing I'm saying is like, let's create a bespoke morning routine for you that works for you, not that works for him or her or this entrepreneur, or like, let's test things. We have to test, right? Some people are not morning people. Some people work better actually at night. Some people need to have that morning as slow mornings, and especially if you're an entrepreneur, it's
That's
like
me.
Yeah, you need to check in and be like, how do I function? Am I better in the morning or am I better at night? For me personally, I'm better in the morning. My creativity is way better in the morning. By afternoon, like I can't do any creative work. I do pretty much coachings or meetings like that in the afternoons. So I know myself personally, and I think we all have to like kind of test different things of like, when are you the most creative? How much sleep do you need? I think that's a big thing. There's a thing called it's a sleep calculator where you can just Google it, where we have different cycles of sleep, and you should try and get those certain amount of cycles of sleep, because if you wake up in between those cycles, what happens is you wake up way more groggy and tired.
How does it work that out? What do you put in?
So you just if you just go to Google and say sleep calculator, there'll be so many that comes up. But it will ask you what time do you want to go to bed and what time do you want to wake up. And then it will tell you for you to get a certain amount of sleep cycles, like 5, 6, 7 sleep cycles. Right. Then it will tell you should be going to bed at this time and then getting up at that time. And then you're in that sleep cycle. And this is what a lot of people don't know about.
Yeah.
With the sleep cycle is like, oh, I'm just going to get 8 hours. And that's like, actually not really.
Because they're 90 minutes, aren't they?
Yeah.
The sleep cycle?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I've got to double check, but I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So to get 8 hours, if you're doing 90 minutes, 3 hours, 6 hours, it's like you'd be waking up in the middle of a cycle. If you get 8 hours.
Yes. So I think it's like mine is like 7.5.
Yeah, I'm about
perfect
7.5.
7.5, and then I feel great.
Yeah.
So I think, with anyone with routines and structure like that, it's like, it is good to have routines, but a routine that works for you specifically,
Yeah.
right? And that could be even just a 20-minute. It could be like, first thing in the morning, I'm going to listen to a certain kind of music or a meditation or something that allows me to like slowly wake myself out of this certain sleep state,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then for me personally, I like to drink a big glass of water with actually probably just under a liter with lemon and marine collagen
Mm-hmm.
and Celtic sea salt. So I do that first thing, and that's for me to stay hydrated. I think as we wake up, we need to hydrate straight away because our brains are like craving, to be hydrated. And then I used to be exactly like, go and do this, go and exercise, and I was
You
like,
get
what am I?
overwhelmed straight away.
Yeah. So in my head, I was like, what works for me personally is like, I don't do it every single morning where I'm like, smash this out, smash this out. I'm like, okay, I'm going to need at least half an hour to 40 minutes. I always meditate and I do tapping personally. I feel like when I meditate first thing for me personally, what it does is it helps me just shake out any thoughts, feelings, or any emotions. And then once I've done that, I'm already like clearing probably 2-3 hours of overthinking of stuff because
How long do you meditate for?
20 minutes
Okay.
max, not more. 20
Yeah.
minutes max, done. And then I'll do a tapping. And tapping for me, EFT tapping.
I'm aware of it. What does it do to you though?
So tapping, what it does is it taps on different meridians. So you tap on the end point of your hand, then it's the top of your head, and then just above your eyebrow, the side of your, like on your temple, then just underneath your eye, underneath your nose,
What's it
on
meant to
on
do?
your chin, on your collar, and then underneath your armpit. And what it's doing, it's hitting meridian lines, which is like, Chinese meridians, like where the energy channels.
Yeah.
As you're repeating different mantras and hitting these points, it's almost like anchoring, like in NLP.
Yeah.
It's very similar to anchoring. So I follow this guy called Brad Yates. He's like the godfather of like tapping. He's got free videos. Check him out. He's on YouTube. And whatever I'm feeling like, I can find videos on it. He's been doing it for like over 15 years. And it always gets me into a state of connectedness and groundedness. You were asking before, like, how do you get grounded? That grounds me straight away. And I find that it also grounds like, it almost gets me excited. Like I'm grounding in my body, I'm repeating it, I'm tapping it. And even after I feel like I'm already ready, like now I'm starting. Right?
Yeah, cool. So it's like because it would be an anchor, like because that's sort of how I feel. Like I have my way of doing things in the morning, and as soon as I do I'll brush my teeth. My final things, I'll brush my teeth and take an E shot, like an energy shot, and I'm fucking ready. Anything in front of me, I'll destroy. Right, but I'll usually just go straight to the gym, but I'm just like that's the final thing for me to go. What about nighttime routines? That's one thing I have not mastered. I'm very flaky on that one. I'm not flaky. I'm just very
I feel like sometimes
committed.
It can be really hard. Well, not really. I mean, it depends on the person. Like you're a nighttime person, right?
Yeah, so I'm very on.
Yeah, so sometimes that can be even more hard for you to create a nighttime routine, especially when you're like, I'm even more creative right now.
Yeah,
I'm getting more shit done.
Yeah.
But for me, like I said, like I like to prioritize my sleep because I know that I am super creative in the mornings. And if I'm not prioritizing my sleep, then I know my morning's fucked. Right? So nighttime routine, we want to keep things at a consistent, again, like switching off bright lights, not looking at screens, like at least the last hour. Teas. I'll give you a link to give some teas. I know there's chamomile, but there's this other tea that I'm drinking. I forgot the name of it. It looks like bark off a tree. Like it just looks like you're like, what am I drinking? But apparently it's really good for sleep and relaxation.
Okay.
So I mix that with chamomile, and then lavender oil. So lavender oil, put it in a little diffuser, and you want to start dimming lights by about, I mean, ideally, like back in the day, like we had light until like sunset. right? So our bodies naturally are slowing down, getting ready to rest, going to sleep. If we are working or we have bright lights, like we're not getting that message. So if you want to be in bed by 11, start getting ready by about 9. Start slowing it down, right? I wouldn't eat as well for the last 3 hours. That also has been a big game changer for me. Like making sure that like I've got a good 3 hours where I'm not
Do you
eating
track your
anything.
sleep? Do you have an Aura or anything?
I do, but I don't wear it during the day.
I had one. I just got a new one. I lost it. But because I was becoming really religious on my sleep and trying to get the most deep sleep and REM I could. And I was chatting with Ty Lopez,
Yeah.
and he said to me that he's like, one of the best things for deep sleep. He tries to get 150 minutes deep sleep.
Yeah.
And he's like, if you can get that, like, fucking let me know. But one thing he's big on is steps. He's like, our genetic body types are for females 12,000 steps a day.
Yeah.
For males 15,000 steps a day.
Yeah.
That's what our bone structure is built for that. And the days I'm getting over 12,000, I'm getting very good sleep. And you can feel it as well, because you get to the end of your day and you actually feel exhausted.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my goal. I want to get to the end where I'm actually like, oh, I can't wait to rest. And so steps are a big one for me. Eating earlier, but a sauna. You ever done nighttime saunas?
Saunas are great.
Yeah, overheats your body, and then you just...
Yeah. So even saunas, or even if you don't have a sauna, a really hot shower before bed, because you want to heat your body up and get your system like quite hot, and then you want to make sure that the room's really cool. They say 21 degrees to keep your room quite cool, because then once your body heats up, then it calms down, and then it almost goes into like this hibernative state of like going into like, a little mini hibernation, and then that's when you get the deepest sleep. My deep sleep's really good. I'm getting about 1.5 to 2 hours.
It's great.
My REM, I'm working on now. So my REM, I'm getting about an hour to 50 minutes. And REM is when rapid eye movement is when you're dreaming, and that comes later on in the day.
Yeah.
So later on in the night. So it's more so like the 5, 6 a.m., 7 a.m. So I know for a fact, like because of my ordering, that once I go to sleep around 10:30 or 11, I know I'm going to get a great sleep. I know if I'm later than that, I know I'm going to be pushing. I still get good sleep, but I know that I'm going outside of my barrier.
I want to switch back to patterns in high performers and stuff.
Yeah.
One of the big things you sort of work with people on is helping them discover where they might be self-sabotaging. We do a lot of work in that space as well. And I find it always just so fascinating, the human brain, why we would destroy the things that we actually say we want. So can we first start, the people you work with, what are some symptoms? What are some things that happen that are self-sabotaging patterns, self-sabotaging actions, results that might be playing out in people's lives that they might not even be aware of?
You've heard of the upper limit?
Yes.
Right. Let me give you an example that everyone will know. Remember Will Smith punched Chris Rock in the face?
Yeah.
Right? He hit an upper limit. And people would be like, well, how did Will Smith hit an upper limit? Will Smith's objective was to become the biggest movie star in the world. Right? I followed Will Smith like religiously since Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, like a massive fan. And one of his things that drove him was to become the best in the world, the biggest movie star, and he was on his way. And what most people don't know, if you haven't read his book, he grew up in an abusive household. His father was abusive. His father used to beat his mother, and he didn't feel strong in himself. Like he was shit scared of his dad, which is natural when you're a kid and you see your dad beat your mom. Like it's like, and you can't do anything. You'd feel helpless. And the way he masked that was with humor. I'll just joke around and hey, and that's the byproduct of that trauma of like, I'll just make everybody laugh and that will fix everything, and he became really fucking good at it, right? And relatable and he's, I feel like he's a sensitive man, and I feel like when I say he hit the upper limit, the day of the Oscars, it was the Oscars, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, it was the day of the Oscars. I think it's the Oscars. Yeah. He was going to get an award for King Richard, the movie. Was it King Richard?
I think so.
I may be butchering this, but
Yeah.
he was getting an award for a movie he just
Something good.
But it was about the Serena Williams sisters.
Yeah.
Right? And he was meant to get the award. Well, he was nominated, but for sure, I reckon he knew that he was going to win the award.
Yeah.
Right? For best actor. And the night that he's going to get the award that he's been striving for his whole life, he punches Chris Rock in the face. And everybody remembers him for doing
That.
the famous slap and not the award. And what happened? Everything went crashing down. So do you see he went the upper limit? He was about to go to the next part. The other side of that upper limit was he's free. I'm the biggest movie star in the world. I made it. I did the thing that I want to do. I don't think he could have handled it. And that's where he's like, the fear kicks in, and this is where he gets into the space of like sabotage.
And this is like, it's so crazy just because it's so, like, you can't put your finger on these things.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It's not, you can't look inside someone's brain and say, that's what happened. But it's almost like they manifest shitty things that happen in their life like that. Or,
well, you think about why do we sabotage? We sabotage because it's almost like we don't know what's on the other side of that.
so is that what it is? So
Yeah,
it's just the fear of like, what if this does happen? And I expand into this on the other side, it's scary. So I'm just gonna destroy it. So
I might not be able to handle it, so I'm going to destroy it before it destroys me. And this happens with money too. Most people will create a shitload of money,
Yeah.
and then what do? They sabotage it by they're fucking it up, or people win the lottery. What do? They have an
Yeah.
identity that they don't know how to deal with money, and it's too much energy and it's too much attention. So what do? They either lose it or they get scammed or they give it up. Like I've had clients that I had a client that made multi millions in crypto, and he came from a poor background. And what did he do? He sabotaged it. He got scammed like over $6 million.
Shit.
He got taken for like different business things, and eventually he got to the point where he actually said to me, Emile, I didn't want the money because I had so many people coming at me, and I just wanted to get rid of it.
So how can we expand into that? Because that's probably the easiest way to measure this for people, money, especially as we're growing. Because every single time I can even feel my body, right? Every single time we make more money or we hit a new milestone or a new record, I can feel not only the discomfort in my body because I'm very aware of it now, but I can feel it's not what it used to feel like. Where I'm like, and what I personally do is I don't make any decisions about money for a couple months. I'm like, I'm just not. It's all cool. I can just see it in the bank and feel it, and that's okay. But I'm not making money decisions, because I might make them out of a reaction, and I'm gonna let it sort of just simmer. Be more comfortable holding these.
I think that's a good idea, bro. Because when we think about money brings up emotion.
Yeah,
and it's so connected to emotions, and emotions is out of control. Right? The reason why people don't like emotions is because it's like, imagine if I sprinkled a whole bunch of dirt in this glass and I shook it around, that's you and your emotions, and most people avoid their emotions is because they can't control it. So when we allow our emotions, and when we're, just see what you just said now, you're like, I feel it, I notice it, and I just let it simmer.
Don't act.
Then I have clarity.
Yeah.
Right? And that's clarity before I make the decision. Right. And I think most people when they're sabotaging, it's like it's an unconscious thing that they're doing. So the more awareness you have around it, then you can be like, what happens when I feel this? What am I noticing in my body? Right? Because most people don't want to feel that thing. So especially with money, when it comes to big decisions, or like, I want to invest in this thing, but I'm scared, or even like crypto, for example, right now, you've got a bunch of people in the bull run that are like FOMOing in and like trying to get there, but then they shit themselves the moment the market goes down. And it's like, what comes with that is the emotion. Oh shit, my money's going down. Oh my God, I should take it out. And it's like, and then it goes back up, and then they shit themselves and they're like, damn, I missed out on that opportunity, and if anyone, to be a good trader or to be good with money, it's like, I need to build a relationship with it. I need to build a healthier relationship with it. And how do you understand your relationship with money? You see exactly how your parents showed up with money. You know, my parents came from South Africa, came from Cape Town. They left South Africa because of the apartheid. And my parents are considered Cape colored.
Cape what?
Cape colored, right? That's the
that?
name that the white man gave people that were mixed.
Cape colored.
Yes,
Okay, it's like
yeah.
a blend.
Yeah. So where Cape colored is one of the most advanced mixed races in the world. My parents grew up in a place like Cape Town where they couldn't go to certain beaches, weren't allowed to drink from certain taps, weren't allowed in certain entrances of places. Like they had colored entrance, white entrance,
Hmm.
and then black entrance, right? So imagine growing up and it's like,
Well, so colored is what you're considered as?
yes, which is like,
and then there's black and then white.
and yeah, so blacks will get treated worse than the white, worse than the colored, but better than, like, so blacks were treated the worst, coloreds
Yeah.
second,
in the
and
middle.
then whites were like could do whatever,
Yeah.
right? And a pure example, bro, like my father, where he grew up, his whole neighborhood was told they had to leave, and it was considered a white area. They got moved out. My dad would get paid 5-10 times less than someone that was white because of his skin color. So imagine you growing up with that. So money is a very emotional thing. So my parents learned to save and stack, but even though they moved us to Australia, they still had a story around money. They still had a story around, like, you got to make sure you save. My dad is always going to Coles or Safeway, and Woolworths, and I got this on special, because of it's so ingrained of, we've got to make sure we save, right? And even after, like, my parents owning like 5 or 6 houses, they were still complaining about money. And when I realized, I was like, holy shit, you guys have 6 houses, you guys are still complaining about money. This is not going to end unless we rebuild our relationship with money. And it started with me.
Yeah.
I had to rebuild the relationship with money. How do I see money? How much am I charging now? How do I want to create wealth? Right? And I had to change that mindset around that. And it's still a consistent thing, bro.
Yeah,
Like,
it's always a
I'm
muscle.
I'm
to build.
still tweaking my money story, even though I'm charging 10 times what I was when I first started coaching and working with multimillionaires or this or that. It's like, I'm still looking at it as, how can I expand my relationship and my connection to it as an energy versus like, this is going to change how people see me or how I feel or this and that.
Before we started recording, you said that you want to dive in to see what drives me.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
What do you think drives me?
Yeah, so I'm curious because you said when you were 25, you were like, I want to be interviewed by the billionaire on the stage, right?
Yeah.
And then you also said,
I want to be the top earner.
I want to be the top earner. So tell me why you're like, I need to be that.
I think what I know now is, okay, so I'll give you 2 answers. Back then, what I wanted was recognition.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was the biggest driver. I'm like, I want the recognition because I'm working hard and I want this. It was like the pinnacle of
what. And let me ask you this then: what was the recognition you were seeking, and where did you not get that?
So because I've been thinking about this in the last couple of years, actually.
Yeah.
So I kind of think I know now. Back in school, I was always sort of like, I was never at like the bottom in school, but I was never like the best footy player in school. I was kind of in the middle, where like me and all our friends, like, we were pretty cool, but how we made up for it was we were all good fighters. So we were not like losers. We weren't really the coolest, but we were kind of like feared. And so it kind of came from that, I think. And I still think to some degree, it kind of what drives me a little bit with everything, to sort of want to create something that wasn't really there. Like something that was be known, be not popular, but create something that where I'm known for something. You know what I mean?
But when you think about like, let's dive a little bit further. So it's like I haven't asked you this. Like, it's a good time to ask. It's like, what's your relationship with your father or your mother? How were your needs met growing up? Were you acknowledged when you did something good?
Yeah, not really.
Yeah, I was gonna
No.
say like, and I straight away I already knew that it's a
Yeah.
common pattern. So when you say not really, like what, like tell me first your relationship with your father.
Mm-hmm. It's normal, but like my whole family is
What's normal?
bizarre. Yeah,
What's normal?
like there's nothing bad. There's never been anything bad towards dad, but
Yeah.
there was never like, because it's hard because I can look back on it 10 years ago what I thought it meant, but now looking back on being like reflection of a more intelligent person.
Mhm.
It's dad did the dad stuff. He worked every day. He'd come home. He'd eat dinner, read newspaper, watch the news, go to bed.
Mhm.
That was dad.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I played soccer growing up. They came to every soccer game. It was, they really did everything they could for us. But it was never really like if I ever had, I'm like, I want to do this. All my ambitions were kind of shut down. Or
Mhm.
if I'm like, when we'd play soccer, I'm like, I want to get the good boost because I want to be really, really good. And it was sort of like, well, we're not really like it's just sort of like it's just a fun thing. It's just a hobby.
Yeah.
So it's like
So
the ambitions were not sort of
yeah.
fostered.
So even what I hear now, right? So you think about like, I want to be the best. I want to be really good,
Hmm.
and there was no support around that,
Yeah.
right? So it was almost like you would just get the mediocre boots, bro,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is where part of the drive and the desire starts to spark. No, I want the best. How come I can't
Mhm.
have the best?
And because we never had it growing up, like so
Mm.
mum and dad always just settled for normal,
Yeah,
average.
yeah.
They just did the thing. They didn't push hard, and so a big drive for me was to not have what they had
Yeah.
for sure.
Mm. Other things. So there's another pattern here where your dad just comes home, he works his ass off.
Hmm.
You've seen this from the get go.
Hmm.
This is what you should do if you want to get anywhere. Work your ass off. Done. Go to bed. Right. But for sure, you're like, I've seen this my whole life, but it's like there's got to be more than this.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing, you said your relationship with your mum. Tell me.
Mum's also quite similar. Like
Yeah.
mum was always like loving, supportive in the way that she knew how to,
Mm.
because she never got shit growing up. So
Mm.
she really tried to do her best there. But I always sort of joke that if I went to mum with like a problem, it'd be like, well, do you want me to punch you in the belly? And I'm like, why the fuck would I want that? She's like, oh, then you got something else to complain about. So it's always just sort of like that tough love approach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even in hearing that, that's what your mother would say to you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if that's a regular occurrence, it's like sometimes our parents don't know how to be with us emotionally,
Yeah.
right? You're seeking something more, and it's almost like that's almost kind of dismissive,
Yeah.
right? It's like, I'm not actually going to see what you're really trying to say. It's like, I'm just going to say this and then we'll just fucking sweep it under the carpet.
Yeah.
For me, I'm like, okay, well, if you're constantly getting things swept under the carpet, you're not being seen.
Mm-hmm.
You're not being heard. You're not being understood. So then there becomes this deep desire for you to really actually, I want to be fucking seen. I want people to actually see me for what I am and feel me and create that. And it's like, there's no surprise that you've created this, even your brand, Dream Out
Yeah.
Loud. You're speaking on stages that you created, bro. Right?
Mm.
It's like, who controls that? You do.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, there's no wonder it's like you've been presented things to your parents of like, I want to be the best. It's almost like I want to grow. And it's like, they haven't seen it. And you're like, I'm going to have to fucking do this myself.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to have to harness this myself. And that's where and that's the blessing and cursing, the curse of what you went through.
So I guess, so like, let's say for example, because I reckon the fear that most people would have would go, well, if that makes me who I am. So what if I was to become aware of that and change that? Am I going to lose my drive?
Yeah. So very common question.
Which is like, high performer does not want to lose their drive.
Very common question. The first thing I get when I get a client, come through me, they're like, okay, I want to create this and I want to be fulfilled, but I don't, I want to stay motivated. And I'm just like, it's not going to change you, but it's just about going, where are we creating from? And how do we create from a more sustainable place? Right? Because eventually it's going to burn out. If you don't have the boundaries and you don't set yourself up to play your game, you're going to be playing still the same game that is from your subconscious that you brought through being a child of getting your needs met, which you are getting your needs met, but it's getting to a point where it's like, is this actually fulfilling me now? Right? And I think with any entrepreneur that's playing at that level, it's like, I think it's about recreating your values. It's going back into your vision and going, what actually matters? And this is where I would question to be like, is this still in alignment with your vision and what you want to create? Right? And I get you to ask yourself that question. And it's like, we can still be motivated. We can still make lots of money and make big changes and create massive things, but let's do it in a way that aligns more so with that internal inspiration. Like I said before, it's like, it's like going back into what actually drives you. What is your why? And then let me drill down 10 times more to figure out if that's exactly your why or if you're still coming from a place of lack.
I love it.
Yeah.
Dude, this has been fun. Where can we find you on social media?
EmileSteamboat.com, or find me on Instagram, which is at EmileSteamboat.
If you were to go back to your 18-year-old self and give him 30 seconds of advice, what would it be?
Take more risks and fail fast. The faster you fail, the faster you learn, the more I grow.